This one I thought was ridiculous.
I gotta be honest with you. This goes to my belief that as a culture, we are constantly looking for a reason to be pissed off. Like here,
Absolutely.
you can screw right off on this one. Thanks in advance.
Everybody's working for the weekend, especially when it's a long Labor Day weekend and summer's just about behind us. And that's how we're going to kick off episode number 165 of the Promo UPFront podcast. I am one of your hosts, Bill Petrie, back in our normal routine, and let's call him the doctor today, the good doctor, Dr. Kirby Hasseman. Kirby, doctor, how the hell are you?
I'm doing well, buddy. Yeah, you mentioned it. We're back in our normal routine. Last week's episode where we had Mark and Bobby from Common Skew on, very outside of our normal. It was really fun. I felt like I got a lot out of it. If you haven't heard it, you're listening to it now, go back and listen to it. It's totally worth it. That being said, it's really nice to sort of fall into our normal routine of you and I. We've been doing this a long time together, so that makes it a little less stressful. I don't want to let anybody down. And so I'm in a good space right now. How about you, buddy?
Same here. And I generally don't listen to episodes after we record them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I did listen to that one, and not only does Mark always bring it, but Bobby, and he always asks such deep and thoughtful questions. I think I was thinking about his question all weekend long, trying to actually answer it. Never really sure I got there, but no, it was really a treat. It was fun to do, shook things up certainly, but it is, it's kind of like we stayed in a nice hotel, and now it's nice to get back in our own bed type thing, and that's a very creepy analogy.
Yeah.
But you know what? Tomorrow is September 1st, or today, actually, when this drops, it's September 1st, Kirby.
Yep.
And as things often do, that got me to thinking.
Yeah.
That's right. We're now entering the home stretch of the year, which means now, not tomorrow, not yesterday, right now is time to focus on finishing strong. We've heard a lot about that with our Promotions East, friends over at Promotions East in Saguenay. As always, our friends at PXP Solutions have some suggestions to help. And I'm going to ask you, Kirby, would you like to hear those suggestions?
Yes, I would love to hear those suggestions.
Thank you for answering in the affirmative where I asked you to do that earlier today. All right, number one, review your prospects. Has anything fallen through the cracks? Good time of year to do that. Focus on quality, not quantity. Now is not the time to just blanket people trying to sell them. Focus on the contacts you do have and make sure that you can close those strong. Never end a conversation that you're having this fall without a plan for the next step. What is happening next? How is that going to move forward? Number four, get laser focused on a niche within your market to target. Again, what do you know? What do you know? What do you do best? And focus on that. And number five, remember to call our friends at PXP for all your apparel decorating needs. Always a great reminder. And this is the time for entering that final sprint to hit your goals for 2023. Your efforts and focus will be rewarded. And when that final push includes some amazing, unique, and creative apparel decoration, give our pal Bruce Joel a call at 214-226-3105. You can also email him at bruce@pxpsolutions.com. He and the team over there would love nothing more than to help you close the year strong. Now, Kirby, we're back to our normal format. I have no idea. You have up front today.
I do.
I don't know of anything going on in the promotional products world. So I'm wrapped with attention. I am giddy with anticipation. What possible topic could you bring for us to chat about this morning?
Oh, I love it when you're sarcastic. So big news this week. And the reason it's big news is because, we get breaking news emails in our inbox all the time. And most of them I'm like, oh, breaking news, I'll check it out. And they're like, oh, I don't, okay, whatever. That's fine. Good for them. But this was one, and I rarely do this. It's one of the reasons what I'm going to bring up is I forwarded it to you with the headline, wow. So our friend, both of our mutual friend, Charity Gibson, was named as the Chief Marketing Officer to Proforma. And again, we don't spend a lot of time on different hires and stuff on this podcast, but again, things that catch my attention sometimes catch my attention. So this one, I thought this was a pretty big deal. For those who don't know Charity Gibson, you should. Big deal on social media. She started on the distributor side, did well on the distributor side, moved out of that, did social media for a lot of different companies, I think both on the supplier and distributor side, mostly supplier. And then she's been recently, I think she still was doing that, but also was national accounts manager for Peerless. And so this is a big jump for Charity. I actually have a sort of some lessons that I think I've been giving this a lot of thought. So some lessons that we can all learn from Charity in her ascent. But I wanted to give you a chance to just kind of give me your thoughts on this and, give me your thoughts.
Okay. So I'm going to give you my thoughts. Then I'm going to give you my thoughts. Got it. Okay. Number one, same thing. I was actually in a meeting with someone on Zoom, a casual meeting. So both our emails were up. And both of us at the same time were just completely arrested with, whoa, what is that? And then 2 minutes later, your email came in. Wow. And I think that's the general reaction of everybody. From a personal level, I'm thrilled for Charity. I think what a tremendous opportunity for her. And I'm sure she's going to slay it. I have no doubt about that. But it is a very splashy hire. Like you said, we don't generally talk about someone moving to this company or someone's moving to that company because it does feel like we're not the podcast of record for career paths in the industry.
Right.
But this one felt a little different. It's a very splashy hire for Proforma. And I think it's a really interesting one, and I think a lot of people look at it from the outside looking, wow, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like, but here's and you know how much I love an analogy, Kirby. There's a restaurant in Franklin called Drake's. And what they have, it's burgers and sushi. And on the surface, that makes no sense at all. I would not go to the same restaurant for burgers and sushi, but I will tell you, they have absolutely some of the best burgers in Franklin, and their sushi is amazing. And so for the people who may be looking at this going, I'm scratching my head, it doesn't make sense, I think you need to give it some time and space to breathe. Because if you said, very well, if you don't know Charity, first of all, are you even in the industry? Second of all, never, ever doubt Charity Gibson. She is and always has been a creative force of nature, and I have no doubt she will do some amazing things at Proforma. But I'm personally curious to hear about your lessons.
Yeah. So one of the things before I dive into those, you said something that arrested me a little bit. I love the idea that you said this is a splashy hire for Proforma, because I agree completely. Like, what was interesting to me is I think you hear this and you're like, wow, that's awesome. What a big move for Charity. And I viewed it exactly like you did. I'm like, wow, this is a big move for Proforma because I think it ties them to a really good brand in the industry. So I just wanted to absolutely agree with you on that. So there are 4 things that kind of came to my mind that we can all learn from Charity's, I call it ascent, but I mean, she's been doing this for a long time, but just bear with me on that. Number one, we talk about it all the time. Use social media and content to build your brand. She does that as well as anybody in the industry for sure. And she does it in a way that is helpful. She sees, she does a great job of utilizing social media, letting people in. So that's number one. Number 2, give first. She's always willing to provide value. That's actually one of the things that I think those two sort of go together. If you go on the Promotional Products Professionals page, she's one of the first to hop on and offer suggestions that have nothing to do with her solution. They're looking for footwear, and she's, Peerless doesn't do footwear, but she's the first one to jump in and say, oh yeah, these folks do that. And so she does it to provide value, suggestions, whatever, in ways that don't service her. 3, see both sides of the argument. I think, there are times where people will put salacious stuff out there. And I think, you do a great job of this as well. But she does a good job of when somebody's on there complaining about a supplier, explaining it in a very non-emotional way of how, seeing both sides of the industry in a way that's respectful of both. And finally, the 4th one, I held up 3 fingers, but the 4th one now is volunteer. Right. She puts herself out there with Promo Kitchen and the regionals and all that stuff. And I just look at those things and I'm like, man, if we all did those 4 things, the industry would be a better place. So those are my lessons.
No, great lessons, and I'm sure you join me. We obviously wish a long and fruitful reunion for those guys.
Yes.
I think it'll be fun to watch, that's for sure. And I have no doubt that there's going to be some really interesting and fun, great growth coming out of both sides. So exciting to see. Hey, Kirby, I got a message for you.
Okay.
The wait is almost over.
Ooh.
Let me say that in the weird voice I was using when I had to do those promotions, these videos. The wait is almost over. That's right,
impressive.
Kirby. Thank you. It's been discussed for months. It's been teased for weeks and anticipated since the dawn of the industry. Well, at least until, the dawn since like January. But that's right. The much anticipated coastal throw from Kanata is here. Now, everybody was talking about this at their booth at the show. It is the softest blanket I've ever felt. It's amazing. It's truly an irresistible blanket that's perfect for snuggling up on a chilly evening. If you're by the pool or by the beach on those lovely fall nights we all love, perfect. And it's finally here. So head over to KanataPromo.com and check out that coastal throw from the good strongs over at Kanata. All right, Kirby. Do you want topic A or do you want topic 12?
I'm going to go A.
Okay. The branding bandwagon, Kirby, the spiked everything trend.
Okay.
The spiked everything trend.
Okay, I want to hear.
By the way, Sandy got so annoyed all last week when I was doing those videos because all I did was walk around and say, "What would you like for dinner?"
It's like the Batman.
Anyway, yeah, exactly. All right, so the branding bandwagon. So it seems like every brand now has a spiked variation of whatever beverage they sell. So if they're a beverage brand, they have a spiked or an alcoholic version of it. Dunkin' Donuts or Dunkin'. I can't call them just Dunkin'. I'm sorry. It's Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay.
They've announced they're releasing boozy versions of their iced teas and coffees. The iced coffees and iced teas this September. They're going to be 6% alcohol by volume. And I'm not sure about the pricing yet. I don't think they've actually settled on that as I wrote this. But, I was looking back at this. It's like, when I go to the grocery store now, and I don't drink a lot of beer personally. It's just not my thing. But I do notice that, the refrigerated section, the beer is maybe 20% of the refrigerator, and fully 80% of it is some sort of fruited malted beverage. So I started thinking about, the seltzers. I started thinking, where did this trend start? And I think it started out with like Twisted Tea, which is actually owned by the Boston Beer Company, which is famous for their Sam Adams brand. And honestly, it's now the company's largest brand over Truly and Sam Adams, which I think is really interesting.
That's really interesting, yeah.
And then it seems everybody's doing this. So, like I said, everybody's got one. Mountain Dew, there's a spiked Mountain Dew.
Yeah. Yep.
Topo Chico, which is owned by Coca-Cola, there's a spiked Topo Chico seltzer. Coca-Cola themselves is now allowing a partnership with Jack Daniels for canned Jack and Coke as opposed to Jack and Cola. You have Sunny D, or Sunny Delight, as I called it growing up. Now there's a spiked version of that, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Arizona iced tea, and there's even a spiked Fresca, which is probably interesting. So I guess the question I have for you, Kirby Hasseman, doctor, if I may, is it good for a well-known beverage brand to hop on a bandwagon, or do they simply look foolish for choosing to blend in with the crowd? I have thoughts, Kirby. Yeah, I'd like to hear yours.
Yeah, I'll give you mine right away. And again, as is the case with stuff like this, just give you what I think. It's brilliant. I think it makes a ton of sense with with a beverage company. Like we talked about collaborations that don't make sense. Like I actually think, like, I had never had an espresso martini until I was on the promo cruise with Promocations, which I think there's only like one spot left. So if suppliers were interested in that, they should probably jump on board really fast. But I had an espresso martini on there for the first time, and I was like, it blew my mind. So when you were talking about Dunkin' and adding a spiked version to their coffee, I'm like, oh, if they made an espresso martini, I would be totally all in. And so, and like Jack and Coke was late to the party on that.
Absolutely.
Like, so
they drag their feet
I actually think it makes a ton of sense when obviously it's got to taste good and it's got, that sort of thing, and market it to the right demographic. Let's be careful that we're not marketing Mountain Dew to kids and stuff like that. Let's assume we're all going to be on the moral and ethical side, which I know isn't always the case. But outside of that, I think it makes total sense. I think every single one of the ones that you just mentioned, I'm like, yep, makes sense. I think it's brilliant.
You make some very salient points, but once again, wrong. Not great for brands, and I'll tell you why. It's good for some brands, okay? Some brands where there is history. Can't say that word. Where there's history of it being a mixer, right? Mountain Dew has a long history of being a mixer for drinks. Coca-Cola does. Spiked iced coffee, give or take, it's not going to taste like an espresso martini. That I can tell you. But it'll come close. It'll be, boozy coffee. It's fine. Sure. But brands like Sunny D doesn't make sense to me. Fresca, no. So I think if you're a brand that has some history where people or college kids or whatever, have mixed your beverage with alcohol, then yes, it makes sense. Dunkin', it makes sense because Irish coffee. What is that, right? I mean, that's Irish whiskey and coffee. So I think a lot of brands, like I'm looking at the list, the Sunny D one, I think that looks just silly. That looks like it's just marketing to kids. I think it's dumb. A lot of them make sense, but a good measure of them do not. And there's so much sameness now. And you talk about being late to the party. 100% you're right with Jack. It's Coca-Cola. Jack and Coke is the most popular cocktail in the world. It is a cocktail, kids. You're mixing one thing with another. Presto changeo cocktail. But for years, they did not want the name Coca-Cola associated in a marketing way with whiskey, with any sort of alcohol. That just changed, 8 or 9 months ago? Maybe. I think it was announced about a year ago. But yeah, when we finally hit source. Yeah, it was Jack and Cola. And the cola that whoever made those things for Jack Daniels, not bad. I actually liked them. They were great for when you're going to a tailgate or something. They relate to it. But I look at that aisle of just mind-numbing choices, and it's like just these slight variations. It's strawberry, guava, lime, nectar, margarita with a twist of pineapple and a splash coconut. It's like, it's exhausting. Sure. I just think there's, at some point, maybe instead of focusing on getting on the bandwagon, maybe focus on leading something and figuring out what the next iteration of this is. And I don't know what that is, and that's easy for me to say because I'm not an R&D at a beverage company. Yeah, but I like what you're thinking. So this just popped in my head as you were talking about it. And let's take Sunny D out of it. Although I think to me, that's the piece that you do as the replacement for the person who doesn't like a Bloody Mary. It's a hangover drink. But then I think there's something. But like, let's use Fresca as an example. Does Fresca, doing a spiked Fresca, have any impact on traditional Fresca sales? Because if so, that's kind of interesting. Well, I don't know. We don't know the data, right? So that would be interesting. I've done the research. I know. No, I don't. I have no clue. That's a good point. I think, okay, so Fresca is a grapefruit-based citrus drink. Okay, that's what it is. It's like Sundrop, right? Okay. What the cocktail I think of, there's two cocktails I think of when I think of grapefruit: Paloma and Greyhound. Okay, Paloma being my preferred. If you had it packaged as Jose Cuervo Paloma with Sundrop with Fresca, now I'm interested. That makes sense when it's the soft drink or the non-alcoholic drink leading the charge. That doesn't feel as that doesn't feel right to me. Not right in terms of morality, but just doesn't jibe with me. It's Jack and Coke, not Coke and Jack. Right. Okay, that's interesting. It's an interesting topic. Kirby, do you have a further interesting topic? I don't know. I'll try. So, robo taxis could be coming to a city near you. Yep. So I assume you've seen driverless robo taxis can be hailed in Phoenix, San Francisco, and Austin. But at least a dozen or more cities are adding in the next year. So, I think we've heard of some of these in San Francisco as well. So these are driverless taxis where you come in, punch it in, and they can take you all over the city or whatever. We've heard good things, and certainly we've heard that there have been some problems in the recent rollout where they kind of ramped it up, I think, in San Francisco. So I guess my just a quick question to you is, A, what do you think of this new trend? And B, do you think it's a good thing? And are you going to be utilizing like an autonomous vehicle for a taxi? So I'm going to take the approach of it doesn't matter what I think, because I think that's the future. So to me, again, and I've used this analogy before, saying I don't want automation in cars and things like that, it's like me standing at the ocean and screaming at it to turn left. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So to me, it's an is. So whatever, I don't really have an opinion about it other than if it's more cost effective, okay, that interests me if it's cheaper.
Great point.
Alternative. Number two, obviously the safety concern, right? And so would I get in one? Yeah, but I white knuckle the first few rides. I mean, my head would be on a swivel, and I would wonder, is there some sort of like emergency brake, like when you were learning how to drive and the passenger who was teaching how to drive had to brake? That's a big trust factor, and again, this will become a generational thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't trust it very much. My kids and our kids will probably trust it a little more, but their kids, it'll be what they grew up with. So it's like, I don't know what your problem is, old man.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to see how it works, but I am concerned about the safety issue. I really am. And who wouldn't be? I mean, I think that's a fair.
I'm not. So you just found one of the people who's not. Because I think it is funny to me that we don't trust the machines, but we trust humans that we've never met, and we wouldn't give the keys to our car to drive. So like, it's funny because we've, just like you said, we've become comfortable with other people who we have no idea what their credentials are to driving us around a city that we don't know, and we don't white knuckle it. We get on our phone and never pay attention.
I've white knuckled plenty of times when humans have been driving a car. So
I agreed. I think this, as you point out, is an inevitability, and I think having some sort of override of this so that you could pull out of an intersection if you're blocking an intersection, sure. Which I think is one of the issues that they ran into in San Francisco. Right. I think it's awesome. I'd be honest with you, I can't wait until they can have driverless cars that can take me to vacation. So I'm all in on this idea, and I think what I would say, and I heard this one time, they said, look, driverless cars, one of the things that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to overcome that time where there's a bad accident and get through that because there's going to be, but ultimately statistics will tell you it's safer. And so I tend to buy the statistics. So I can't, by the way, I'm supposed to be in Austin here in a couple weeks. And if I can get a driverless taxi, I'm all in.
You'll do it.
Absolutely.
Here's the thing. I'm not far removed from you. The where I would only push back is your analogy with human beings. Machines by their nature do not have empathy. They don't have sympathy. They don't have emotions, right? If they just
you give a lot more credit to humans than me.
Get in car and go. But still, I don't worry about my safety so much in a driverless cab. I worry about the pedestrian safety. Okay. Is it have the sensors to stop in time and things like that? That's actually more my concern. I would white knuckle it just because it just will feel very weird not to have a human drive. That will feel strange. But again, there's also, I'm a big person that embraces new technology. I think you would agree with that. It's not any sort of puffing up my ego. There's technology you want to embrace at the onset, like AI and learning those type of tools. And there's some that let's kind of work out the kinks a little bit, buddy. And this falls into work out the kinks a little bit. I'm interested and I would do it. I would not be like nervous. Oh my gosh. But I'd be like, okay, this is a little weird. Okay.
Yeah, I can't wait.
All right, Kirby. Do we have time for one more? Not really.
Yep. One more.
All right. So this came from our good friends at PPAI, and they published an article about nixing these 7 passive-aggressive phrases from your vocabulary.
Okay.
And I want to go through these one by one. And do we agree that these are passive-aggressive, or are we just really overcorrecting here?
Okay.
All right.
I can't wait because I saw the headline, but I didn't read the article, so I'm excited to hear this.
So number 1, noted. It implies that you're not overly engaged in the conversation.
Or that you heard what they had to say and were like, I think that's stupid.
I agree. I don't think that's inherently that's not passive aggressive. Like if you say, hey, by the way, we need to record next week on Wednesday, noted. You would not take offense. I just don't get
okay,
that
so here's what I'd say. Tone matters. Right?
Absolutely.
Tone matters. Like I think I don't think I say that on a regular basis, but I've had people say it to me and I've never felt offended. I've been like, okay, cool. They heard me. So that would be my take.
Number 2, I haven't heard from you. This is a guilt-inducing opening phrase that can come across as rude.
I don't love it. That one does feel a little bit more passive aggressive. Again, yeah, you're right. You haven't. I've been busy. But here's what I'd say. My natural reaction is to get defensive when I hear it. So that's why I would say that I would agree.
Yeah, fair enough. To me, if I said that to you, which I kind of did today, I'd sent you an email and I didn't say I hadn't heard back from you. I was like, hey, I know you haven't gotten to it or whatever. Yeah. You didn't get defensive, nor was it passive aggressive. Yeah. I think when I get the 5th solicitation email in a row, that's a trail that somebody's been sending me. Yeah, that's super passive aggressive because
tone and who it's from.
Yep, 100%. All right, number 3. I thought you knew. This implies that you fulfilled your responsibilities, but the other person has overlooked theirs. It's also condescending.
One of the things that is a struggle.
These on mic file under tone and tenor, but
yeah, they all do. But I like. Yeah, I think context matters in all of these. For me, it's like, oh, I'm like, does it start with, oh man, I'm really sorry. I thought you knew. That feels different. I don't know that one. I don't think that one's that.
Yeah, but if you say, yeah, thought you knew.
Yeah, all exactly.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see that. A lot. The way I read that is, oh man, I'm sorry. I thought you knew. Even though there's not a sorry about it. Yeah. The way I read it is, I thought you knew.
Yeah.
I don't see a problem with that. Number 4, thanks in advance. It shows you're not considering the other person may not have had time to do what you're asking them to do. Instead, thank them for considering your request, but don't act as if they've already agreed with you. This one I thought was ridiculous.
I gotta be honest with you. This goes to my belief that as a culture, we are constantly looking for a reason to be pissed off. Like here,
absolutely,
you can screw right off on this one. Thanks in advance.
Yeah, I totally agree. And here's one that might be interesting, Kirby. CCing my boss for visibility. It implies you don't trust the other person. Now, 100% I agree with that one.
Yeah.
Where but sometimes I will forward an email to someone and I want them to see it. I want them to be aware of it. So I'll say, hey, F for your visibility, or just the word visibility, just so they see it. But CCing my boss for visibility, that is a move. That is a move.
I agree with that one 100%. That is, and again,
me too.
And here's the other side. On the other side of this, when we're not getting replies from a supplier or a salesperson, I'll be like, hey, copy me in on that. So that they know that I like, so yes, that for sure is a bit of a passive aggressive. I'm on it.
Well, but it's also one we have to employ sometimes.
Of course.
Like if you have a client that isn't paying and I may have to CC someone else. I get it. Number 6, not sure you saw my last email. It implies that the recipient often overlooks important work emails.
Or they ignored you and they're being an asshole.
Again, if it's a solicitation, trust me.
Yeah.
I did see your last email.
Yes. Fair.
And let's go back to number 2. You haven't heard from me. There's a reason. I don't love it when someone I know says, not sure you saw my last email. It's the old thing of, man, with electronics these days, you never know. Maybe you're in your spam folder. And that does happen on occasion, but it's not this ubiquitous problem we have with electronic communication. So it's really just you saying, can you give me a little attention over here?
But on the other side, so my pushback would be that, reply to a goddamn email. Especially depending, but it depends on the relationship. Again, tone and tenor. But like it's one of those things where it's like, hey, you asked me for this information, I gave it to you. It's up to you. Like, if you want me to stop emailing you, I will stop emailing you when you reply.
I don't think it's what the article said, which was, by the way, this wasn't written by PAI. It was compiled by PPAI.
I love it. This is a great article. I think it's a fun discussion.
Yeah. I don't think that it implies the recipient often overlooks emails. Sometimes I overlook an email because I get 1,000 of them a day. Okay, that's a little. I get probably 80 to 100 emails a day, and there are times. It happens with a text too. I read a text.
Yeah, I do that more.
And I forget to respond. I'm like, I'll respond later, but then I don't see that little number up there anymore. Yeah. And so I forget. It happens, folks. Yeah. All right, last one, Kirby. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. It adds no value, appears condescending, which is a theme here, the condescension. Adds no value, appears condescending, and only adds fuel to the fire during heated conversations.
I think this list was compiled by a very insecure group, not PPAI, but this. Want to make sure we're like, hey, you said this, I said this. We agree.
Yeah.
Yes. Is there a way
Yeah.
I can say that doesn't come off condescending? Because I would
Yeah.
actually like to know that we're on the same page.
Well, and here's what I thought. I thought the same thing you did. This seems to be put together by someone who just set foot in the work world, has been coddled their entire life, and hasn't had to deal with any sort of real world conflict. And this last one really touched a nerve with me, because to me, that phrase can and should be and usually is a building block for collaboration, to making sure that everybody is on the same page, you have the same vision, you're doing what needs to be done. To me, that was ridiculous. And as I read through these things, it just underscored how important communication is.
Yeah.
People, and I'll back up your point. People immediately, it's almost as if as a society we are wired to immediately get pissed off, offended, upset, subjugated, feel a certain way, as opposed to saying, hey, did I do something to upset you? By asking a simple question like that, a clarifying question, because a lot of times it's, oh man, I'm sorry, I'm just really busy. So, and I run into this a lot because I tend to be very direct in my communications. And if you don't know me, it can come across as really condescending. And I
Especially
really
in
try to
writing,
watch
because you
that.
don't have tone or tenor there, right? Like,
But even in spoken conversation, and I really I've tried to wire my brain, but I'm human. I'm not a robot driving in San Francisco, so I'm going to make mistakes. But I am direct, and so sometimes people read that as condescension, and it's not. And so when someone says, "Hey, man, are you okay? Is everything okay?" Yeah, I'm just stressed. I've got these things, and everything is time. So it's an interesting list, but boy,
very
does it
interesting.
seem like people want to be
The
offended.
same page one, I keep coming back to. You apparently have never been in a situation where you had a conversation, because I have. I've had a conversation where I am sure we have communicated. We've both gone back and forth. We are for sure on the same page. And then we're totally not.
Yeah.
And so the idea of clarification is important. It's like,
like I said, a phrase like that is a building block for collaboration and compromise. That's what it is. And so maybe everybody not get so offended, but I'm going to tell you something that's not going to offend you, Kirby, and that's our good pals over at PXP. Bruce Jolish, good group of people there. They want you to finish the year strong. They want you to focus on reviewing your prospects, making sure you're focusing on quality, not quantity. Get laser focused on a niche in your market, and really just finish that year strong. Hit those goals you set early in the year. And if those goals happen to include amazing, creative, and gorgeous decorated apparel, no better partner than our good pals over at PXP. Call Bruce Jolish at 214-226-3105. Or, of course, you can send him an email. Just don't say you haven't heard from him. That's probably rude. And you can send him an email, bruce@pxpsolutions.com. Kirby, always a pleasure. I wish you a fabulous Labor Day weekend. I am going to be outside cooking all weekend. Awesome. So I will put on my do not disturb sign.